And I'm going to invite Nick Main, who is the chair of Sea Change, to come up. I said wildly, made up out of my own tiny head at the beginning, that Nick was going to summarise what had been discussed. That seems ridiculous now, but he might be, I don't know. But would you please make the chair of Sea Change very welcome, and Nick Main to the stage. Thank you.
Kia ora, everybody. And thank you very much to the panel and Michelle for taking us through a fantastic evening. Yes, the job was really just to try and summarise all that. I'm familiar with a lot of the debate that's been had here, you'll be pleased to know. It's chairing the Stakeholder working group that's producing the Marine Spatial Plan. What was interesting for a debate, I thought at the start we're going to end up in violent agreement, and in fact I think we ended in violent agreement as well, which is always difficult for a debate. And actually, not particularly surprising, one of the first things we did as part of the Stakeholder Working Group process was we listened to the voices of the Gulf, and more recently to the Matarangi Maori of the Gulf. And we find a lot of common themes consistently coming up through that process. So it didn't surprise me that we have a lot of violent agreement, but we also end up sometimes with not quite violent, but significant disagreement about how you might get to the end result. One of the things that you said really early on was the environment is a room. And I thought, well, yes, I can think about that, but sometimes our children are probably a bit older than most people's children around here. But I can remember you come down and you find the room's not quite as tidy as it might have been when you left it. But you can get over that because you can see the change in the room and you can encourage people to adopt to the standards, perhaps the standards of your family. But there was a lovely cartoon, a picture, I don't know if anybody saw it up there, somebody lifting up the sea and sweeping the rubbish underneath it. So it's managed to sweep all the rubbish underneath the carpet and you never notice. People might not know what the change they need to make is. And one of the problems is that people just aren't aware of what's going on in the Gulf. They see it out there, they don't have much interaction with it, and they don't understand what's going on, despite the good efforts of the Hauraki Gulf Forum in promoting through their State of the Gulf reports what's been a continual decline. More than that, we've got huge changes coming. We've had huge changes, lots of people arriving in this country. You can hear I was one of them. Different cultures, and all of this without a very explicit statement of how we deal with the Gulf. They're ways that people learnt to behave in the Gulf, but they're not explicit statements. And because it's a commons, quite often people are very embedded in their rights with the Gulf, rather than what their obligations to the Gulf are. And I think we probably have to change that. You can't get away with that anymore. One of the issues about increasing populations is you have to change what was okay in the past. There was always this little saw that used to say that the solution to pollution is dilution. And actually New Zealand got away with that for a long time, but no longer. And you can see that with the rivers. So I think there's a great deal of understanding that needs to be developed about the impacts. We talk about ridge to reef, the impacts from the land to the water, to understand the connectedness of everything. We talk about the food web. We're particularly keen on abundance in the Stakeholder Working Group. But right now, that group is working away, having had 12 months now doing research and information gathering, is trying to put this together into a plan. The good news is I think we are at a time where change is possible. Michelle talks about the goddesses rising, but I think there's a whole series of things that mean that actually even the corporate world recognises that there's a license to operate and they have to behave differently, and everything's very visible these days. So I think we're at an opportunity where we can affect change, and we plan to do that through the Marine Spatial Planning process. We've got 4 months to finish it. When it goes out, it'll either be good or it'll be brilliant. I'm hoping it'll be brilliant, and it just depends how far we can get that consensus in that period of time. And we're very conscious of this has to make the difference, because we've got this opportunity to make the difference right now. What I would ask is, there's a whole lot of people, it's not the people in the room, as it's been pointed out, it's not the people in the room who aren't engaged, it's the people who aren't in the room and unlikely to come to a room for a debate like this. So we talk about leadership a lot, and it comes up consistently through the process that leadership is going to be really important, and a sense of kaitiakitanga. But I'd like everybody in the room to be part of that too, that when we come out, look at it critically, of course, but be supportive of it. Because I think that change needs leadership, and that leadership needs to come from people like you who are interested and engaged in this process. Certainly the SWG will be taking their plan and selling it, non-statutory process, so they have to sell it, otherwise without the enthusiasm of publics and politicians and everybody, it won't be implemented. And I think the people on the SWG didn't engage in this to waste their time for 2 years. They're really committed to making a significant difference through the process. So I think there's a real opportunity when this comes out to help support it. There'll be an opportunity for media. I'll go and talk to everybody here who's got access to a television channel, because it's been very difficult to get them engaged in the process. We manage with the newspapers and the radio to some degree, but we will be certainly selling what we produce. So, but thank you very much for the debate. You didn't solve all the problems that I have here, but some of them were aired quite nicely, so and that was very useful. Thank you.